we made a pact, you and I. Once upon a time, in those radiant days on Gallifrey, when we would race through the red-bust hills, dance between the chrome-capped trees, our screams and laughs tearing through the quiet of an ordered, sensible, decrepit society. We made a pact. You were the golden boy, the shining example. Your eyes were like diamonds, as bright and brilliant as the mind behind them. And that smile, from the faintest hint of it when you played innocent in front of Barusa, to the wide, gleeful grin as we ran through those forests and fields. The way your eyebrow would arch and your eyes would narrow as you questioned the world around us. The warmth of the smile you reserved for me, and me alone. I loved that smile, and the boy who smiled it. And I think, or dare to hope, that he loved me back. One day, do you remember which? We made a promise. No, promise is the wrong word, too light-hearted for what we did. We made a pact. A pact to see the universe together, to touch every star in the sky and the countless stars beyond, to see history unfold before our eyes in all of its joy and its grief, its glory and its infamy. I remember everything about it. We were lying on a hill outside the capital as the suns in the sky cast a range of pinks, purples, oranges and reds, trailing away at the edge into the inky blue of night. A storm had just passed by, so the grass was damp. The freshness and sweetness was an intoxicating perfume as we stared up, out into the universe beyond. Well, you were staring out there. I was looking at you, watching your enraptured expression as you surveyed infinity. And before I could stop myself, I was saying the words that would define my future. We should go and see them one day. You turned to look at me, those shiny eyes once more trained on my face, that eyebrow raised in curiosity. What's that? You replied. The stars, I answered, my mouth running away from me like a Suntaran from a chip fryer. We should go out there and see them. Something flickered behind your eyes as you responded. Something that, to this day, I can't quite place. Just you and me. Together. At this, I couldn't help but laugh. Who else would you invite? Mort? And you laughed back. Rassilon's pants, that'd be a mess. And Lucius would try and dissect every species we came across. Oh, she would, I cackled, before quickly shutting up. Don't tell her I said that. You smiled at that. My favourite smile, with all the warmth of a hearth fire radiating from every inch of your face. The smile only I got, the smile worth more to me than 1,000 million gemstones. I shimmied over to you, gave you a little nudge on the shoulder. So what do you say then? The universe. Together. Suddenly the world went dark as the dusk finally gave way to the night, inky blue and streaked with purple. The pinpricks of light from the stars and moons was just enough to illuminate your face, every curve of it glowing and cut through with shadows. You bit your lip, almost nervous, before reaching out to grasp my hand. Together. Night might have only just fallen, but I could feel a new dawn already, the dawn of a new era, of the Doctor and the Master, travelling the stars together. Forever.
Megan rubbed her eyes again. She was supposed to be at home watching the evening news with her dog, and in some other universe, she was. A mosaic of blocks opposite her flashed in a dizzying sequence, then stopped, waiting patiently. Getting abducted was much like having a hangover. The lights crossed in her vision, and after a few moments, the blocks blared red again to signal her failure. She groaned.
Taya, is that 235?
A cheerful voice blared through some hidden speaker.
Can you hear me?
Megan wheeled around. Who's that?
I'm the Doctor, Human Help Services. Do you need any help?
Her expression collapsed into a grateful smile. Yes, please.
Don't worry, the sequence starts at the top left.
Beep! Megan complied.
Middle on the middle row.
Beep!
Second to the bottom on the left. Or was it the right?
Bleep! Eventually, the final sequence struck up in lights. Facing a wall of screens, each showing a different human with a different task, the doctor watched as the scale of lights beside monitor 235 slid up from the liquefaction in red to commendable in green. Brilliant, she beamed. Gotta go. Try not to get liquidized. She flicked her headset to another channel displaying sirening lights. Human Help Services, 304, how can I help you? The recipients of each jovial greeting usually needed a few seconds to recover, but only that. They had already ended up here, after all. A nervous voice rambled through the headset of 445.
I don't know. I'm not good at this. I can't even do the crosswords on the paper. I usually get 2 or 3, and I'm not even talking about the cryptic ones.
The doctor took a calming breath. Okay, I just need you to tell me what it asked you. He sniffed, blew his nose on his sleeve, and murmured,
Identify all these traffic lights.
Katie Jones of Chelmsford, England, had already had the 5th dimension revealed to her, a million different futures projected into her frontal cortex, and an incomprehensible new colors and sounds shifted in her mind. Nah, she chewed her gum thoughtfully. I don't really get it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not fair that they give you that. I don't really get it either.
The doctor chimed. Understanding all the fiddly dimensions was the sort of thing you lied about to impress people at dinner parties. Not that she got invited to dinner parties after the last one. Human Help Services, 109. How can I...
Wait.
The figurine waved his hand, broken from his concentration.
I've got it. It's all right. Just give me a couple more seconds.
The doctor squinted at the screen. He was faced with rows of glowing symbols from some obscure Altarian number sequence. Sure? Because I speak Altarian if you want to know the answer.
No. I know this one.
I don't think you do, actually, the doctor bristled. Listen, it's the one that looks like a badger.
No. I don't want to know.
It's the one... Shh. The doctor opened her mouth, allowed the thought to take a sharp turn to the back of her mind, and then closed it again. Fine. She marked 109 for later.
It wants me to build a photon reactor circuit?
Came 547. The doctor leapt up. Oh, I know that one.
Human Help Services, 789.
The old man offered her 3 sherbet lemons as way of thanks. The doctor bargained for 2, adding,
You never know. You might need those.
Human Help Services, 607. The headset crackled. The doctor startled, her eyes landing on 607. The little figurine wasn't human at all. Oh, hello. Who's a good dog? Go fetch that red box. Go on, fetch. It wasn't long before the scale had shot up long past any human subjects. Human Help Services, 121.
Right, what's your name? Tanya?
Right then, 109. One by one, the monitors slid up to green.
Hiya, 164.
At last, the chair swiveled and bumped the door as the doctor pushed herself back to admire her work. The collective scales doused the dome in a green light, a bright, triumphant light, which made her smile glow. They really did need her, didn't they?
The elder man of white ash hair, who sits in front a trestle blue, his form confines the creaking chair, and pulls the ring light back askew. Before him lies a myriad of paints and brushes, tools of trade, harken back to his young period, a time best spent on models made. The right set brush is what he needs to set the pattern merrily. Figure clasped, delicate stroke leads, gliding tip that flows graciously.
Look, that's not how it goes. You've done his face all wrong.
An angry Scot, brows both furled, runs his mouth critiquing endless. Of strokes made when brushes twirled, annoyance found to be tremendous.
I mean, I should know. I had to rebuild him. He's definitely greener.
Your color choice lacks subtlety. I do not think you see clear. Your comments breed deficiency. Nothing you'd think a friend hold dear.
Oh, I'm deficient. You don't even have a proper wet pad. You prattle on about details and accuracy, and here you are dipping your paints all willy-nilly. I think what you truly lack is passion.
A line between hobby and art that stems from passion or delight. But who's to judge these two apart when both infuse and make life bright? This tiny man whose life was drab, rescued by my immortal hand, forever enshrined in my lab, perfect reticence on a stand. Reaching for a perfect ochre, something bright for avid contrast, a blend of pink, a touch of amber, hues to define and mark what's past. Doctor struggles to keep his cool, whilst his friend is painted anew. A quirky smile to look the fool, a hint of character to cue. Perfection sits within these strokes, your qualities I bring to front, but one mistake could make a joke, sever soul, their life exunt.
So that's your great plan, is it? Keep us here, trapped forever? You know, you could be out there exploring instead of trapping your specimens here in your bleak excuse for a room. The universe is meant to be experienced, not modeled and kept as a souvenir.
The cricketer was quite content to be left driving carts on tracks. You, however, are more intent to whittle down and grind your axe.
Well, maybe you haven't made the best impression. I tend to be harder to impress in my old age. Probably due to the fact that you're exceedingly boring for an eternal entity.
The painter rests his loaded brush and grabs the doctor's wooden frame. Pull him close, their nose aflush, and grin with malice, eyes aflame. Although vocal, he could not move, the doctor trapped within his shell. His flippancy he now removed, sharpened focus giving no tell.
You do realize that this will be the end of you. After what you've done, who you've hurt, my friends. I will end this, you poor excuse for a hobbyist.
Your threats are stale and quite idle. I'll keep you here to contemplate. Observe those who bear your title. Compliance now that once berate. Retrieving brush and loading paint, the old man set about his task. Eliminate doctor's complaint. Remove the mouth with paint to last. Fresh and coveted in silence, his destination now observant. Join the others in alliance, a line of doctors all concurrent. Now, unobserved, the doctor waits, waging his time to activate, straining hard to avoid their fates. One arm moves to retaliate.
You know, you're rubbish at holidays. I hope you know that, groaned Lucy Miller, her head ringing from the activity of the last few hours. Yes, it's been mentioned a few times, grunted the doctor from nearby. Lucy would have looked at him as she complained, but her head swam to the point of nausea, so she decided against it. A picturesque forest planet the doctor had promised. Beautiful tree-filled vistas as far as the eye could see. Yeah, right, thought Lucy. Beautiful vistas where you get tied up for pulling the camera out. You know, I thought I told you to enjoy the quaint atmosphere of the town, chided the doctor, clearly straining against the ropes that they had both been bound with. Yeah, well, you didn't tell me they had a nutty technophobe god who actually chats to 'em. The doctor was silent for a long moment, probably trying to find a way to make sure this whole situation isn't his fault again. How did this become normal? Lucy wondered. I admit that may have been a new addition, but I haven't been here for a while. Okay, I swear I have not been travelling with you long enough that we're repeating baddies, have I? Lucy called over to the neighbouring pole. You'd be amazed at how many cultures get taken advantage of by people with big egos and a vague technological know-how, replied the doctor. Your race especially has a disappointing habit of taking advantage of innocence. Harsh but fair, thought Lucy, remembering her history lessons on colonialism. Well, the ones she'd actually gone to. She tried to wriggle and get at least one hand or foot free from her bindings, but only succeeded in giving herself a mild case of rope burn. As she let herself relax for a second, she heard a series of wriggles from next to her, and quickly found herself face to face with the doctor, standing free. Not a hint of rope burn, but a trace of a smirk on his lips. And this, Lucy Miller, is why we pay attention when Harry Houdini gives escapology lessons. Smart Alec. Now get me out too! Within seconds, Lucy found herself rubbing her wrists, trying to soothe them from the harsh ropes. The clearing outside the cave was completely empty of life besides the pair. There was a wide oval of gravel that led into the cave mouth, where not even a single blade of grass grew. Well, shall we get the confrontation with the, baddie, as you put it, out of the way? Suggested the doctor, nodding his head towards the cave. Lucy smiled, gave him a playful punch on the arm, and strode in first. What they found inside was a sparse, dark cavern. No high-tech futury walls and panels. Sat inside was a monument that could only be described as a cobweb of wires, all leading to something in the centre that made even the doctor blink for a second.
Doctor, is that a laptop?
Cried Lucy, highly dismayed that her holiday had been ruined by something that was even commonplace in her era. Well, it certainly looks like it, Lucy. Let's get closer, the doctor called, as he attempted to navigate his way through the tangle of leads, cables, extensions, and any other manner of wire-based paraphernalia he could think of.
Are we seriously meant to be an offering to that? That feels almost insulting after all the fuss.
The doctor let out a triumphant aha as he found something on the computer. We were never really offerings, Lucy. Looks like this village was sheltered from technological meddling. Like someone's camera phone, eh, Lucy? Then those offered up to their god were gathered from here and sent home. Looks like there's a planet-wide city besides all this greenery and simplicity.
Wait a minute. Does that mean all that hissing and booing we got was
a manner of ritualization to disguise the protocol of keeping the good life, I suppose? Yes. Lucy finally managed to stumble her way through the wires until she stood next to the doctor.
So, no baddie. What do we do now?
Well, leave them to it, I think. Come on, back to the TARDIS, Lucy. Leave them to it.
Yaz sat on a platform in the TARDIS, watching her legs swing back and forth. The doctor was still outside, on a volcanic moon impossibly distant from Earth. Yaz shuddered at the memories, ambient red-orange light with malice woven into its shadows, the thing that had inhabited her body, and flashes of stark yellow rock formations, bubbling red lava, a thin-crested blue face upturned in shocked terror as Yaz's limbs, wreathed in flame, struck it again and again, and Yaz's mind was powerless, alone. Then the doctor had held her down as fire leaked from her fingers and her mouth, and roared at the thing inside of her to get the hell out of her friend and stop using her to kill, or it would have her to deal with. And it had worked. Orange light glinted out of the polished floors into the corner of her eye, where sparkling tears gathered as her legs swung back and forth. "Get back in the TARDIS, Yaz, and wrap yourself up in blankets with some hot cocoa," the doctor had said. And she'd bundled her through the doors, with that look that said, "I want to take care of you, but there are people to save and no time to do it in." And then she'd gone. At least, that's what Yaz thought that look had said.
what she hoped it said. But she didn't want to think about that now. She hugged her leather jacket around herself. She'd been too exhausted to get blankets. Her fingers found a hole in one elbow where the creature's fire had burned through the tough material. A tear slipped out of her eye and plopped onto the smooth surface behind her. She blinked, clearing her vision, trying to focus on the torn knees of her jeans as her legs continued swinging, back and forth. She'd sat like this before, in a playground swing before the funeral for Ryan's Nan. Just after, but also just before, everything changed. Ryan had been in the next swing over. Sometimes, when everything was this wrong, you couldn't do anything but pretend you were a school kid again, on the swings with your friends. She wished she could say something, anything, to comfort him. Maybe being there was enough. But she'd known, even then, that she didn't want to be there much longer. She wanted to be by the side of the doctor, to learn the amazing things that she knew, to feel the thrill of adventure and do things that mattered. She'd been something of an outsider that night, on the train, at that crane. Sure, she and Ryan had been friends as kids, but the other people there were his legend of a Nan, Grace, and Grace's husband. Ryan and Graham seemed bound to Grace by more time and love than Yaz could imagine sharing with anyone outside her own family. If she'd walked away from the hunt for Sim Shaw that night, gone back to her job and her family and hiding dreams she could never make herself follow, she didn't think any of the others would have missed her. But she would have hated herself for missing the opportunity. She had hated herself on that swing set, thinking about herself and her loneliness instead of Ryan, who'd just lost his Nan to be left with a step-granddad he didn't want. But somehow, it had been all she could think about as her legs swung back and forth. Well, now Yaz had gotten her wish of traveling with the doctor. She was even important to her. We can't have a universe without a Yaz. Those words were one of her most precious memories. But still, every time she recalled them, a lump rose in her throat, and something about them felt incomplete. Not enough. Why can't I be satisfied with what I have, when it's more than I ever could have dreamed? Why, when I'm the best friend of the best woman in the universe, do I feel so alone? And the hum of the TARDIS didn't quite drown out the sound of the sob she swallowed, as she forced herself to focus instead only on her legs, swinging back and forth.
Magor never knew day. It always existed at night. No sun orbited Magor, yet somehow this quiet, lonely planet was still inhabitable. Small, deep blue stones covered the surface, giving the planet its brilliant blue color when admired from space. Magma pools lurked between the surface of stones, which produced the Goldilocks level of heat to keep the planet from freezing, and gave the stones above their vibrant shade. Not every pool hid below. Just one laid exposed to the air, sitting deep within a pit, shining bright enough to warn any surface dwellers to stay away. One touch would be all it took to melt away the flesh, muscle, and bone of any poor soul to fall in. The pool exhaled, and a trail of steam ascended out of the pit, and directly into the face of the man hanging above.
K9! Where are you?
It was only a moment ago when the doctor was admiring the pit and circling its diameter, marveling at Magor's anomaly. The only opening on the entire planet, and not only that, but the one and only tree, ancient and enormous, standing tall beside the pit. Its jagged blue arms reaching over the pit. Two of the greatest mysteries on Magor nestled together, but before he could recall his theories aloud, he was pulled off his feet, up and over, dangling like meat on a spit. He was caught in a trap, and seemingly volunteered himself as prey. This was not the Doctor's favorite trap. The Time Lord had plenty of experience as a captive, and most of them were better than this. There's no unethical scientist here to experiment on him, no military brute to torture him, no egotistical trillionaire to monologue about taking over a galaxy. There's nothing! This is the worst sort of captivity, no interaction whatsoever. It leaves the Doctor alone, trying to find ways to entertain himself. But there is only so much a bird can do in a cage, especially one as tiny and restrictive as this. He did initially try to keep himself occupied during his predicament. The first thing you always do as the captive is to check for any means of escape. You cannot always rely on others to set you free, especially not K9. The Doctor inspected the binds. A simple knot to untie. What worried the Doctor more was what the other end of the rope was tied to. It was secured tightly to a distant blue branch, and much to the Doctor's dismay, the branch seemed ready to collapse.
Hurry up, K9!
Where had he gone? How long does it take to get back to the TARDIS, look around, dig through the 300 or so storage cupboards, find the appropriate tool, return to the tree, set up and use said tool to get the Doctor out of here? It's not rocket science! But before he could complain more, the Doctor jerked downwards. His eyes scanned the lifeless tree. That struggling corpse of a branch crackled dangerously. K9 needed to move quick. The Doctor began calling out K9's name desperately. He yelled, he roared, he bellowed, but nothing! No sound, no innocent voice called out, no tiny motor wheels spun. K9 was absent at the Doctor's crucial hour of need. The branch snapped. The Doctor dropped straight down, head first. This was it. His final destination in front of him, speeding closer. The bottom of the flaming pit. He was helpless. With no other choice but to accept his fate, he screwed his eyes shut. The Doctor's face and hands crashed onto the surprisingly cool surface. He felt himself sink further and further until he began rising up. The Doctor flew right back up into the air and soared over the pit once again until his flight slowed. He descended back into the pit and landed on the same surface, which threw him back up a second time. It was here where the Doctor opened his eyes and discovered why he was now in a cycle of falling and rising. Between the bubbling magma pool and the Doctor, there was a trampoline?
Master?
K9 chirped. The Doctor turned to look as he continued bouncing up and down. Beside him, hopping up and down, was the dog of the hour, K9! He leapt into the air along with his master.
Took you long enough?
The Doctor remarked.
Patience, Master.
The Doctor smiled.
It's really you? It shouldn't have hit him so hard. Such a simple question, and it was as if Grace had reached inside and squeezed the Doctor's still beating hearts. Had she been expecting him before now? Should he have chosen a sooner date? Pushing the doubts aside, he let that easy smile cross his face as Grace held him at arm's length. The way she looked at him only confirmed she must have expected so much more from him. It was the kind of excitement that only came after all hope was lost. Were you expecting someone else? My apologies, he said. That carefree laugh momentarily erased all worry from the Time Lord's mind. Quite the opposite. It's been over a year and no call. I'm here now. So leave with me. The words were trapped in the Doctor's throat, clawing for some way out. His always charming smile stayed in perfect place as they began walking. There was no direction in particular, just a lazy stroll across the city as Grace began catching him up on the time since they parted. With little effort on her part, the teaching hospital had scooped her up for bigger and brighter things. The research opportunities were unending. "What about you?" she asked, giving her old friend a nudge. "Me? Well, just about the usual," That doesn't tell me much, unless you've been saving the world from would-be body snatchers. The doctor had to laugh. That would be so much simpler. Pushing a stray curl from his face, he looked up as the dark clouds above began to rumble. It smelled like rain. Nasty clouds there, he said. That's all right, my place is around the corner. As soon as Grace said it, the doctor finally recognized the park. He had been so up in his head it hadn't even registered that they had made their way so far. Things had been so much easier when the doctor was sprinting across the grass in rapturous joy. His eyes burned as he remembered that perfect moment. It had been so long since he let himself remember that night. Looking to Grace, his throat grew tight with nerves. All he had to do was ask. And then she looked at him. What had it been about her that melted his heart so? The fierce desire to help from the moment they met had swept him off his feet. Every moment by her side, the doctor had basked in the sheer brilliance of Grace Holloway. She was one of the most exceptional people he had had the honor of meeting. Everything within the doctor wished to reach out and brush a lock of copper hair from her face, to lean close and share another tender moment. I can tell something's on your mind, she said. You have a terrible poker face. What makes you say that? He said. The last time you were here, you were running around like the Energizer Bunny. It's not hard to put two and two together. Of course it wasn't. Still, the doctor struggled to say the words. What was the use when he had known the answer from the moment he landed? He had been foolish getting his hopes up. The amazing Grace was thriving in her time. Poisonous despair threatened to take root as that nervous feeling dug its claws into the doctor's hearts. This was a mistake. He took a sharp breath as he tried to push that feeling away. You've caught me. I wasn't wanting to rush you, but I'm afraid I'll have to be off now. The lie came too easily. Oh, yeah. I completely understand. Before the doctor could make his escape, Grace opened her arms and stepped forward. It was only a brief hug, but the simple gesture caught him off guard. Wrapping his arms around her, he let himself have the moment. Don't be a stranger. I mean it. The doctor took his time returning to the TARDIS. The ghost of her arms wrapped around him like a balm to his uneasy soul. He knew better than to look back. It was time to move on. San Francisco didn't seem too friendly anymore.
The house on the dead hill rose before her, jutting up out of the black dirt like a gouge in the sky. She knocked, grim-faced and silent, gripping a bottle of red. The door was pulled open so fast that it would be more accurate to say that the door was there, and then it wasn't. Replaced in its frame stood him. Valerie! He drew out the last syllable of her name until it stopped sounding like anything at all. I'm so glad you could make it. Valerie blinked at him. He coughed slightly and straightened his bow tie. And you brought the wine. How thoughtful of you. Now our party can be all grown up and mature. He said the word as if testing it out for the first time as he swept the bottle out of her hand. Have you put this on ice? I'll have to put it on ice, he chattered as Valerie trailed after him deeper into the house. Or is it the wrong one for that? I never figured out what gets ice and what doesn't. I guess I'm just too cool for that, eh? He stared at her with that idiotic, gaping grin. Valerie smoothed down the folds of her gown. What's for dinner? He coughed again. I've cooked up only the very best for you, my Lady Lockwood, he pronounced, dashing off into the adjoining room. The recipe I learned from a Scoffier. But, I always told him, my man, you leave it in too long, and a dry duck is no duck at all. His voice trailed through the doorway, catching on the slumped wood of the frame. Valerie adjusted in her seat and found that a puddle of viscous wetness had settled under her feet. She inched the chair to the side. He dashed back in, gripping a comically massive pot. After a suitable amount of huffing and puffing, the pot made its way onto the table. Humming, he ladled a portion onto each plate and pushed one over to Valerie. She looked at him, and he beamed at her. "Dig in!" Valerie watched in silence as he ravenously gulped down the wriggling, protrusent sludge, spoonful after spoonful. "Have as much as you like," he spluttered through a bulging mouthful. A gob fell out of his mouth and onto the cracked table as he spoke, a squirming lava twisting within it. "But make sure you leave room for dessert." Valerie put down the fork. "Okay," she started lightly. "I did what you wanted. Now it's time to let him go." "Let him go?" he echoed curiously, the black oozing past his smiling teeth and dripping delicately into his wineglass. "But we've only just begun, Miss Lockwood. Aren't you having fun?" He tilted the doctor's head ever so slightly farther than a head tilts. "We haven't even retired to the drawing room for a parlour game." "Yeah, well," Valerie swallowed hard. "I'm a bit sick of this game now, actually." "Well, I'm not," he whined, rising from the table and licking the maggots off his fingers. "The doctor has been such a gracious host. Can I not afford you the same hospitality?" "Don't get me wrong, I can't think of a better way to spend my evening. Believe you me." She stood smoothly from her seat and edged her way back as he advanced towards her. "But typically I spend it with my friend." He laughed, a light, keening, wailing sound that drowned in his throat and finished with a wet, gurgling cough. A splatter of black painted the floor. "I am your friend, Valerie. More than the doctor ever was. He was quite the selfish sort. Wanted my company all to himself. Insisted on it, in fact." He shook the doctor's head disapprovingly. Some people never learn to share, do they?" "Right, yeah." Valerie acquiesced vaguely, feeling her shoulders brush up against the back wall. She watched him take one and then two more steps. "And some people," her fingers fumbled along the splintered damp wood until they found the edge of the curtain, "never learn to look up." His blighted, stolen eyes stretched wide as Valerie took a single breath, seized the cord, and pulled.
The man's eyes went wide. The world was blank to him. His brain processed nothing around. Not the aroma of the flowers, the smell of their picnic food, the sound of the flowing waterfall, the groans of the time ships in the distance, or even the light of the ghostly moons. He only took in the beautiful face of his wife, his beloved, her face adorned with the smile that always melted his heart during arguments. "You are serious," he finally spoke, his voice barely rising over the bubbling of the waterfall. She rolled her eyes and placed a hand over his cheek. Instantly he was brought back down to the moment. She had that effect on him. "Yes," she giggled. "I'm serious." Her free hand instinctively went to her stomach, as much a gesture of love as an affirmation. She was pregnant. He was going to be a father. They were going to be parents. Back to reality. But even back down to reality, his mind raced with questions. How could this work? Would they settle in the Citadel? How was their deployment in the Great Survey going to affect the baby? Brown or blue walls? Each question just added more to the already overflowing pile, and he could feel himself slipping back in. His wife didn't bother, smiling inwardly. She knew he'd come out of it himself eventually, even if it was still a little entertaining to watch him like this. So, she continued, almost as if wanting to poke it further, what do we name them? That brought him right back down again, which was starting to wear on him. The name, of course. Leave it to him to forget the most basic questions at the worst of times. She smiled again, this time outwardly. Watching him look around at anything at all for even a hint was amusing. His eyes fluttered over the moons, the waterfall, the stars above, even their robes. If you say cheese, she said, I'm never letting you decide anything ever again. As his eyes darted over their picnic food, he chuckled, eyes now stationary and calm. Slowly, a smile crept across his face. I have it, dear, he finally said, his hands slowly intertwining with hers. How about... The man's eyes went wide. Not the same eyes. No, there was an eternity between them, but they went wide all the same. The speaker still kept rattling off casualty numbers and names, just a tad audible over the moans of pain, the rumble of temporal shielding, and the clanking of boots. He still wasn't sure he had heard it right. It couldn't have been. He couldn't process himself moving, past the bleeding and bled out, past the officers coaxing the depleted recruits to move, past the soon-to-be corpses crawling amidst it all, their bodies desperately trying to live once more. The golden dust of regeneration energy was all too common now. In his haste, he didn't even notice how breathless he was when he got to the communications office, though the private at the front certainly did. I'll need a list of recent casualty reports you just announced today. The young private sighed as if he'd heard it 100 times that day. Sir, I can't provide that! Before he could finish, a seal of Rassilon was shoved into his face, freshly dug out from within the man's battered leather jacket. The color drained from the private's face as he turned and hurriedly clacked away a terminal. Within moments, the list was displayed in a hologram. The man scanned it, hearts hammering, hoping against everything that he had misheard. Then he saw it, and a pit formed in his stomach, threatening to consume everything. He hadn't misheard after all. The moons, the flowers, the bubbling of the waterfall, the name. Silently, he turned, paused, and walked back. After a moment, the private called out behind him, an uncharacteristic burst of personality. Thank you for your service, Doctor. The man kept walking, back into the field of bloodshed and newborn corpses, though anyone close to him could make out the slightest mutters from under his breath. That's not my name anymore.
The depths of the Amazon rainforest are not the kind of place you'd expect to find a young, rather well-dressed couple, but nevertheless here they were. From their set of suitably vibrant clothing to their far from stealthy pattern of movement, they weren't exactly difficult to spot. The shorter, Jo, furrowed her brow at the jungle ahead. To the trained eye, the route ahead was clear, but all Jo could make out was green. Lots of green. "Cliff," she addressed her companion, "you're sure we're going the right way?" "Aye, of course." He ruffled the map in his hands pointedly, tracing a line across it with his finger. "Along here, down this ridge, past the waterfall, and back onto the main trail." Jo raised an eyebrow. "And you're sure?" "Oh, without a doubt." He nodded emphatically. As Jo moved to inspect the map, he began tracing the same route. "Where are we now?" Cliff indicated a spot on the map with certainty. Jo raised her finger to point further along Cliff's trail. "You said we were there half an hour ago." "Ah, aye, well," he sputtered, trying to bluster his way out of it. "You see, we're lost, aren't we?" "Well, not necessarily." She tilted her head towards him, eyebrows raised. "Mislaid, perhaps?" "You know, you really are just like the Doctor sometimes." Cliff shifted at his mention, turning back to the map in faux examination. I know you wanted the toadstool to be your big rediscovery, but did we really have to go ahead without the guide? He was slowing us down. Cliff shrugged. At least he knew where we were going. She settled herself onto a fallen tree, her feet barely scraping the ground. Cliff's expression turned serious. He sighed heavily and looked round towards Joe. Do you regret leaving him? Joe took a moment to react, lost in her train of thought. What? Do you regret leaving the doctor? Do you wish you had stayed? Cliff stared unflinchingly. Cliff? Where has this come from? Her voice spoke with a slight tremble. She righted herself, turning her body to match him. Are you asking if I'd rather have stayed with him? Well, do you? Cliff! Joe turned away, appalled. It's just, you keep talking about him, comparing me to him. I can't help feeling like a replacement, like second best. Joe locked eyes with him, clearly hurt. I have never for a moment regretted coming with you. You know that. He stirred a little. You are the man I love, the only man I love. Don't you dare think any differently. The clearing fell into silence, their eyes drifting across the foliage. I'm sorry, Joe, Cliff finally piped up. It's just, I worry. Her tense shoulders relaxed slightly. I know I mention him a lot, too much, but it's not because I'd rather be with him. She took a deep breath. I worry about him. All those times I was there to save him. What if something happens to him and I'm not there to help? Something awful and he... Cliff moved over to her, placing an arm round her shoulders. Oh, Joe. She smiled a little. I'm sorry for bringing him up so often. I'm not saying you're a substitute for him. Far from it. You're so much more. Cliff's eyebrows raised. It was clearly not the response he was expecting. Well, the doctor was amazing, but he was fantasy. You're real. You're the only person I'd ever want to spend my life with. You're the best of him, and more. Cliff hugged her tighter. I'm sorry. For what? Oh, for doubting you. I was terrified to lose you. I mean, you saved my life. Who else could compare to that? Cliff looked into her eyes and smiled. You're my world, my serendipity. She laughed a little. Sometimes being clumsy has its benefits. He reciprocated her laugh and opened the map again, still looking puzzled. Joe took one glance at it and pointed enthusiastically. See that waterfall there? We've just passed it. That means the trail's just over there. She set off determinedly. Well, come on. Cliff grinned and jumped to reach her, taking her hand. The two strode off into the jungle.
A breeze stirred as the TARDIS materialized in the middle of a wide, grassy field, its familiar wheezing echo reverberating across the sky. The doors creaked open. I told you I'd finally take you to the Eye of Orion, Perry, the doctor beamed, stepping out with arms wide. And here we... He stopped short, frowning at the landscape. Oh no, not again. Perry followed, arms crossed. Let me guess, not the Eye of Orion, but still just as lovely in its own unique way? The doctor adjusted his coat. Now, no need for sarcasm. I'm sure this planet has its charm. He squinted. Oh, what's that? He was already striding towards something in the distance, a towering structure in the middle of the field. Doctor, wait up! Perry called, hurrying after him. They walked for several minutes, wind brushing past them. As they approached, the structure revealed itself to be a massive cairn. Hundreds of stones stacked high, defying gravity, looking as if they were held together by sheer will. But what truly caught Perry's eye were the flowers. Nestled between the stones were flowers, Forget-me-nots, rosemary, marigolds, and daisies. Some were fresh, others faded or dried, creating a living tapestry of memory. "What is it?" Perry probed gently. The doctor circled it, pulling on his glasses and muttering as he read the inscriptions. "Names, dates, symbols, local script, personal writing." He paused, stepping back to take in the full picture. "If I had to guess, I'd say this is a remembrance cairn. A memorial to someone." Perry knelt near the base, brushing her fingers against the daisy. "Whoever it was, people really cared. Look at these flowers. They're not random." "Oh?" the doctor distractedly murmured, still reading. "Flowers have meanings," explained Perry. "In Victorian times, people sent entire messages in bouquets, languages of flowers and all that." She touched a pale purple sprig. "Rosemary's for remembrance, marigolds for grief and pain, but also warmth and creativity. Forget-me-nots are obvious, and daisies mean innocence. New beginnings." The doctor frowned. "You know your flower symbolism?" Perry smiled. "Botany was what I studied at college. Have you forgotten?" she teased. The doctor didn't answer, but continued his examination. Perry looked up at the cairn. "Who do you think they were? Young, maybe? These feel like flowers left by friends, not family. Someone who made an impact." The doctor's face shifted, his expression almost haunted. He stared at the stones and then beyond them, as if seeing something else entirely. "There was someone," his voice wavered. "Not long ago. A mathematical genius. A friend. Always asking questions, always challenging me. I thought I was teaching him, but he taught me." Perry tilted her head, observing. "What happened to him?" His jaw clenched. "He died. Too soon. I tried to save him. I failed." Perry touched his arm. "You never talk about them." "I don't," he admitted. "Some grief stays with you, hidden in the bones. You learn to walk with it, not talk about it." Perry turned back to the flowers. "Maybe this person was like him. Someone remembered, not just because they're gone, but because of who they were." The doctor stayed silent. The wind stirred the petals, carrying the scent of rosemary and grass while he stared at the cairn, lost in thought. "It's not just about mourning," Perry added gently. "It's about celebrating who they were, the lives they touched." The doctor reached up and unclipped the sprig of celery from his lapel. Perry blinked. "You're taking that off?" Without a word, he stepped forward and placed the celery carefully among the flowers. It looked absurd, yet perfect among them. "You would have liked this place." A tear rolled down his cheek. "The tranquility. Whoever this person was, maybe they were a bit like him." Perry smiled. "Maybe a lot like him." They stood together in silence, letting the wind speak around them. The doctor turned to her, his eyes clearer now, a steady calm lifting the heaviness from his face. "Maybe daisies, then." Perry tilted her head. "What?" He met her gaze. "Maybe that's how we remember them. The ones we've lost. Not with tombstones, but with flowers that bloom again. Maybe daisies."
When I joined UNIT, I told Kate Stewart that I was prepared to sacrifice my life to save my planet. I never realised quite how precisely she would hold me to that. Day 8625. 23 years, 7 months, and 8 days later. Wake up at 7 a.m, grab the computer, wait for the buzzer, walk to the next cubicle. Every morning, my weary stagger through the door connecting one cubicle to another takes me 6 steps forward, 24 hours back in time. When the Praxians threatened Earth, it quickly became apparent that their vast intelligence outweighed even the most powerful computers in the world. Every plan of attack was already been anticipated long before we executed it. It would be impossible to take them by surprise. Calculations that would take the Praxians seconds to complete took us hours. We were never going to win. Time just wasn't on our side. But when UNIT encounters a problem, it often sees a solution. What if we forced time to be on our side? Calculating a plan to successfully defeat the Praxians would take 60 years, at which point the Earth would be around 60 years too dead. But what if those 60 years could take place in 24 hours, spread out across tens of thousands of rooms? 21,915 rooms to be exact. Nearly 55 square kilometres of cubicles, each offset by 24 hours in time. The same 24 hours. Again, and again, and again. 60 years squeezed into one day. In every cubicle, there's a computer. The same computer at 21,915 different points in its journey of running code. Code that one day will reveal how to outsmart the Praxians. One day. In every cubicle, there's also a woman. The same woman at 21,915 different points in her journey of guarding that code. Code that one day she'll present to Kate Stewart at the age of 83. One day. That woman is me. That woman was me. That woman will be me. 21,915 cubicles of my life. This elaborate tapestry of time and eggshell walls will one day save the Earth. One day. Mercifully, the cubicles weren't completely identical. UNIT were kind enough to equip each one with a single book, often whatever's lying around in the archives. Something to distract me from my temporal prison. A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. Never mind. Whatever I do echoes into my past and my future. For a whole year, I knew I'd eventually snap. Day 1152 was when I started to hear her pain in the distance. Screaming and wailing that began as a whisper but got louder and louder every day in every door I walked through. I assumed that the boredom and loneliness had gotten to her. Maybe it was messing with her mind. One day, I'd find out. I felt sad for her, grieved for her, wished I could hold her. I knew, though, deep down, she was coming. For a whole year, she was creeping up on me, and I was creeping up on her. A year of waiting, till one day, it was my time. The worst 24 hours so far. And then it was over. Except it wasn't. Her torment ricocheted within these walls every single day for another year. What began as a yell eventually became a whisper. Again, and eventually disappeared. Although, sometimes, I swear I can still hear her. From that day on, I knew I needed to be more careful. Whatever I do within these four walls happens again and again for the rest of my life. Midnight approached, so I paused the computer, appreciating the closest I'll get to freedom for many years. The walls became a soft blur as my vision darkened, my thoughts turning to the 80-year-old woman somewhere nearby who was finally free. I knew that soon I'd be dreaming. That's where I'm truly free. I'm running. Sand cushions my every step. A pillow beneath my feet. Running. I reach a dune. A mound of counted time. Every grain falling. The remaining night in this cubicle ticking away. Running. The sand has turned on its head. Grains beginning to fall again. Day 8626. 23 years, 7 months, and 9 days later. Wake up at 7 a.m. Grab the computer. Wait for the buzzer. Walk to the next cubicle. A new room for me. A new set of calculations for the computer. A day I've yet to live. And lived thousands of times before. One day I'll be free. And that day has already arrived. One day.
The TARDIS wardrobe was part of every passenger's morning routine, and that was no different for the Doctor. When you get dressed in the same place for about 900 years, you begin to know your way around. Where to go, to find exactly what you want, and what parts of it to avoid. The Doctor had planned to wear the same thing he wore nearly every day. Dress shirt, striped yellow pants, suspenders, waistcoat, tie, and finally, his wonderful rainbow coat. He was about halfway through the process of getting dressed, and all was well. He took his waistcoat off the rack, prepared to put it on, and then stopped. He saw it, just barely, out of the corner of his eye, but still unmistakable. He'd been trying not to look that way, but evidently trying could only get him so far, and now that he'd looked, it seemed impossible to tear his gaze away. He stared at it. It had been so long since the trial, and yet he hadn't changed a bit. Was he supposed to change? To avoid becoming the Valeyard, he would have to. But would attempting to change result in that terrible future coming to pass? But if he didn't change, then there would be no chance of him becoming a better person. But what if changing meant becoming... Perry was right. Circular logic did make you dizzy. Perry. The Doctor's relationship with her should have been evidence in that court. Surely the things he did were some sort of crime. But he had apologized. At least, he thought he had. Did he? He wasn't quite sure, but he did change. He changed for the better, so surely that had to be proof of something, right? Or not. Deep down, he was still the same egotistical, callous, sorry excuse for a Time Lord he had always been. He'd just gotten better at controlling it. That was part of the Valeyard, though, wasn't it? He could control every part of himself, and yet he still chose to be the man he was. Did that mean that if the Doctor could gain that control, that he'd make the same choices? His reflection winced. This amount of stress could not be healthy, and for all this thinking, he still had no idea what he would do about it, or if there was anything that could be done. The Valeyard existed. The Doctor met him. They fought. The Doctor won. For any of that to have happened, the Doctor himself had to have become him at some point in the future. And that would mean that nothing he could do would change that. In a way, the battle was over before it had even started. The Doctor wrestled with the thought of it, the inevitability. He wasn't the type of person to give up, but thinking about this, all of it, it seemed like there was really no way out. The idea that he would become someone like the Valeyard ate away at him. His heart's clenched. "What a pathetic ending," he muttered to his reflection. The Doctor in the mirror didn't respond. He couldn't. He was just a reflection.
"Doctor?"
A young voice called out. He continued to stare at the mirror.
"Doctor, are you in here?"
The voice shouted, a bit louder this time. A pathetic ending for a pathetic man. How fitting.
"Doctor!"
The Doctor was brought back to reality by the sensation of being pinched on the cheek. Very hard.
"Ow!"
he yelped.
"Mel, don't do that." "Sorry, but how else was I supposed to get your attention? You seemed a bit..."
She looked at the mirror and giggled.
"Preoccupied."
I wasn't..."
"Oh, it's fine,"
Mel said as she skipped towards the door.
"Just remember we've got aerobics at 10, so make sure to wear something you can move in."
And with that, she was gone. The Doctor looked back at his reflection. The feeling was completely different now. He sighed. Just another reason not to look in the mirror.
It's far less colourful than I imagined. Professor Bernice Summerfield gazed at the darkening sky. The white star sank towards the horizon and silhouetted dark mountain peaks against its glow. I don't mean to be rude, Dina, but I've seen better sunsets on the trash heaps of Galaxy 5. Small, feathery, and large-beaked, Dina chirped something conversationally. Benny sighed. The Doctor will be here any minute now, and when he does, I'll tell him never to mess with the translation circuits ever again. Grimacing, Benny recalled him under the TARDIS console a few hours ago. All I'm doing is giving it a touch-up, the Doctor had rumbled at her. We don't want any miscommunications where we're going, Summerfield, trust me. The Tithonians are very particular about respectful verbal communication. Now, Benny tapped her foot, glancing at Dina the Tithonian, whom she could not verbally communicate with. Thanks, Doctor. The sun sank behind the mountains somewhat further, and she shivered against the encroaching cold. A few more minutes and it's good night to Tithonus. Forever. A clicking noise came from Dina, whatever that means. Benny decided to make it up in her head. Perhaps the clicking noise was Tithonian for not forever, just a long time. I know that, Benny replied to the sentence that wasn't spoken. But 2 million years might as well be forever for the likes of me. And you. I mean, why choose this moment to wait? Out of all of time and space where you could have gone. Dina cooed, which could have meant, I've always wanted to see it. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Benny considered this. A once-in-several-generations on Tithonus opportunity, you mean? But Dina, your world, your species, your entire way of life? After the sun goes down, it all goes away. Doesn't that make you sad? After a moment, Dina chirped some more. Of course it makes me sad, she could have said. But sadness doesn't change it. Time doesn't stop, Professor Summerfield. It is sad, and it is not sad. The glow of the star shrank further beneath the mountains and clouds, casting long black shadows over the white sky. Benny pondered what Dina didn't say. That's an interesting way of thinking about it, Dina. But things are different where I'm from. Days are fleeting and noisy, and nights come and go without pause. But not here.
It's not that different, the creature didn't say. Clicking, Dina added, I might argue it's the same on this world. It's not the same, Benny snapped, her fury surprising herself. She jabbed a finger at the shrinking sun. Whenever that thing rises or sets, the whole world collapses. Millions die and ecosystems are destroyed forever. She scoffed and shook her head. I just don't understand why you think it's all fine, Dina. Any moment now we'll be plunged into complete darkness and freezing cold, and the doctor will probably still be taking his precious time doing who knows what, who knows when. Dina squeaked, cutting off Benny's rant. The creature ruffled her feathers and chirped something further, then settled back down. Sorry, mumbled the archaeologist. I shouldn't be shouting at you for something you haven't said. She reached down and pulled a handful of grass between her fingers, feeling each blade. But Earth just isn't the same. Here, during the day, evolution creates a wholly unique world that all ends at nightfall. You could fit about 4 human histories within every Tithonian day. Bobbing around a bit, Dina squeaked something that probably wasn't, but the night brings more life, more evolution. And one day, the nightlife too will pass on. It is the same as Earth. The sun rises, people are born, people die. The sun sets, people are born, people die. Time continues. The wheezing of a TARDIS nearby made Benny exhale in relief, and she paused. And one day, I'll go too, won't I? My time will come, yours, even the doctor's. But luckily, not just now. Not tonight. The sun set on the departing travellers.
Firaxis Minor 5089. A dump by all accounts. A universal junkyard of small pockets of civilization, making a living selling scraps and components to passing starcraft. Arana Meldock had been to Firaxis Minor once before, while on deployment aboard the Ander. They had to stop off for parts, repairs to the SLT drives. Arana had only gotten a brief glimpse, but it felt isolating, which was just perfect these days. Arana clambered up the scrap heap, leaving hunks of metal behind them, until they reached a peak. From there you could see all of Firaxis M. Well, all that was worth looking at. You had Jack's Town, the closest thing that constituted a city on Firaxis M, the containment dome, which enclosed it and provided a breathable atmosphere, as well as the great piles that surrounded them. Arana had made a home in Jack's Town. It wasn't much, but it didn't need to be. Arana took a deep breath through the respirator before removing a small silver cylinder from the satchel and raising it to their eye. The telescope, a relic from some world somewhere, magnified their surroundings and provided a digital display to boot.
Hey, you there! The telescope!
A confident voice called out. Arana lowered their telescope and turned, seeing a man. He was dressed in a thick brown leather coat and sneakers. He had a blue-tinted buzz cut and a mustache. He was not someone one would usually see on Firaxis M.
Love it, by the way. Telescope, very vintage.
He said, stopping beside them and huffing behind his respirator.
Seen the time-space visualization circuit about? Been meaning to fix the old thing up. See if I can catch the Beatles again. Or maybe the Interstellar Song Contest. Although I'd probably want to see that live. Oh, Rubes would have loved it.
He rambled. Arana just watched.
Oh, sorry. I'm the doctor. You are? Arana Meldock.
Arana replied, holding a hand out. The doctor took and shook it.
Nice to meet you, Arana Meldock.
The doctor exclaimed, pulling his hand back.
You look a long way from home.
Arana looked wide-eyed at the doctor.
I don't know what your collar. Well, your whole outfit. Those are Anglican fatigues. You're a Marine. I was a Marine. Not anymore.
Arana replied, looking down. The doctor looked over Arana solemnly, then stepped forward.
You deserted, didn't you?
He asked. Arana took a deep sigh and looked up at the doctor. He had a kind, reassuring smile on his face.
Yes. It was Asterion 3. When we found out what Valengar was doing to us, making us kill our own. Our friends. Our families. It made me lose my faith. I had to run.
The doctor placed a hand on Arana's shoulder.
I understand. Losing people is tough. But you keep going and keep believing.
He looked over his shoulder.
And by the looks of it, you've made a good go at it.
Arana followed the doctor's gaze and spotted Bendak, who was calling for them. Bendak was a friend. He was a vendor, pale blue skin with 6 eyes and scales. Their voices crackled as they spoke. Arana always found it endearing.
Friends of yours? It's been a while since I've seen a Vendo.
The doctor asked, stepping back.
Bendak. He's my friend. Well, more than that. Sort of.
Arana replied.
Oh, yeah. A friend. Gotcha.
The doctor teased. Arana giggled.
You said you lost your faith. Do it like me. Have faith in your friends. Those you love and adore. They will be there for you in your darkest days and the best ones ever. Trust me, it's worth it.
These words, which some would dismiss as pointless rabble, swelled inside Arana. They looked up at the doctor, but he was already halfway down the garbage heap.
Where are you going?
They called out.
To find my circuit. I'll see you around out on Ameldok. Keep your faith. Have a good life, babes.
The doctor yelled back with a grin as he disappeared into the fog. Arana turned towards Bendak, and with a grin, they began to walk back down the heap, ready to tell Bendak just how they felt.
The head that dreams spiraled into the heavy clouds of the last nebula. It sang its song of winds as dust on its surface flew out into the darkened cosmos like the death rattle of matter, dissipating until it could no longer be seen, bitterly similar to the once prominent stars that dotted the universe. In the bald field at the apex of the head, 2 stood locked in their stares, devoid of emotion or judgment. One a tall yet short figure, wearing a frock coat, or was it a leather jacket? Or a sweater? He carried a rebellious air about him, tinged with the hint of condescension. The other, both charming and disgraceful, wore a sleek black suit, or perhaps the robes of a long-dead race, or perhaps the clothing of political office, his smirk framed by a pointy black beard. "It's you," said the one who fights evil. "It's me," responded the one whom he fights. Above them, the nebula seemed to spin at high speeds, though there were none left to witness. It was just them now. They paid no mind to the sight, for they had seen everything already, long ago, just now, just recently. It was all ancient, current, recent history. "What was it that brought us here again?" asked the short, tall one. "Our minds and bodies," claimed the bearded figure. "But what event? What cause?" The evil one brought their hand to his face, caressing his beard as she thought further on the question. "I see. Was it you or I who made the first kill?" "If it was I," the cosmos began, "then perhaps I'd blamed it on you and created your evil." "And if it was I," the void retorted, "then the evil had always been within me." "Good creates evil, and evil creates evil." "Ah," proclaimed Destiny, But evil also necessitates good. But evil can also destroy good, argued fate. Too true. The two finally looked up to the bright spiralling colours in the night sky above their head, but they weren't admiring the view. At the end of all, the only thing that mattered were the facts. What caused it this time, do you think? Asked the sun. The moon put forth a possible answer. A war in time? Or perhaps a war in heaven, the sky corrected, and the ocean depths snapped back in anger. Be specific, there were several, and yet they were all one. A look of deep sadness crossed the hero's face. The tears rolling across her face were laced with screams from dead friends whom he hadn't seen in eternity. Perhaps he would visit them when he got the chance. And our home was destroyed, the Saviour said, wiping the tears from their face. The murderer chimed a mocking tone, if either of us ever did call it home. It had been home, for we had each other. And what had we been to each other then? Always friends or siblings, same difference. The rebellious one winked. Both met each other's eyes. One carried a profound sadness, the other a deep rage. Friends who battled bitterly, siblings who tried to kill each other and sometimes succeed, who burned stars to destroy the other. Friends? Aye, is that not what friends are? Smiled all the universe kindness, and all of its rage returned the gesture. I suppose so. And those are the facts. The two approached each other, like coming home for the first time in all history. They each grabbed the other's hand, unsure of who initiated, but sure that it didn't matter. Heading into eternity then, said the maker of futures. We always have been, said the champion of the present. The two walked into the nebula and allowed themselves to enjoy the sights. The light of the nebula grew brighter and brighter. All the colours came together and whited out. The light faded. On the head that dreamed, in the bald field at its apex, two figures appeared and stared into each other, the light in the very darkness of time. It's you, said the one who fights evil. It's me, responded the one whom he fights.
The stars together. Fuck. Sorry.
Classic Dean, am I right?
Oh, god damn it!
I don't know how culty this is supposed to be.
I hate you, Ciarán. I love you, I'm sorry. I hate... Oh.
Take us away, Gareth, whenever you feel like it.
Right.
I hope that some of my moans are, usable.
Take one of being punched in the face.
Anything.
Shall we?
The doctor wouldn't have made me... The doctor wouldn't have made this machine to get in here unless I could use it to help. Fuck!
Never more a butterfly. Where did you hear that before? At Spectral Horizons. That's where you heard it.
Spectral Horizons. For the love of drowning.
Oh, no! It's...
Witches! I've got a better idea. What? Come.
Oh, fuck it! Bark is tight.
I'm sorry, I have things to do now.
Mwah.
Oh, honestly, Doctor, can't you just fuck off for one moment?
Whee!
Sexual Horizons, Sexual Horizons, Sexual Horizons, Sexual Horizons, Sexual Horizons, Sexual Horizons.